Guys, stay with me here, but what if Arkveld isn't real? Hello then, my fellow hunters. Now, this one is going to be fun, let's say. And look, okay, obviously Arkveld is literally real, you know, he's there in the trailers, and we have gameplay of him now, and he's going to be in the beta. But in the kind of, you know, worldly sense, in the lore sense, maybe not as real as we thought. And that's probably, again, eliciting a reaction of,
"Ooh, you suck!"
So let's get down into this before I fully lose you all. So, the recent trailer is filled with incredible reveals, but actually, the most interesting thing to me is something that wasn't even in the trailer, something that was updated on the official Monster Hunter Wilds website, where you can see all of the monsters and locales and characters in lovely little splash screens and bits of information, and it's all just generally lovely. But before we get to what there has kind of made something click to me, I want to go over the basis of what I'm about to talk about. A few odd, recurring things across all of Wilds has started to be noticed. A few people here and there finding a couple, seeing what other people have found, putting them together, and there's a sort of theme going on. A couple that I've noticed that I can add to this pile. So let's start with the actual logo of the game. Something that Athem Wolf pointed out is that in the logo of the game, there is these swirly kind of glyphy patterns carved into the letters. That's a good basis point. Keep them in mind, this sort of iconography. Then we have the sort of main backgroundy, flary, serpenty, swirly logo that goes behind the actual text. Got very similar themes of these sort of ancient patterns and sort of carvings. We first, when the game was revealed, did whole deep dives into them, looking at similar markings made by ancient civilizations like the Aztecs, and it was a lot of fun. Very little to go on back then, but that's always part of the charm. Now, you'll notice in that sentence, very naturally, ancient civilization just came up. So I'm gonna warn you now. Keep that in your head, okay? It's always time for our at least bi-monthly ancient civilization chat, and that's where we start. Then, in that very first reveal trailer way back in 2023 Game Awards, we saw the lightning rods be electrified for the first time. And when they are electrified, well, the lightning briefly reveals a very similar, and by similar I mean the same kind of swirly patterns on the lightning rod itself. So that's interesting, but so far still nothing too ridiculous. But then more recently, when the oil well basin was revealed, when the black flame was revealed, you notice something once again. This was pointed out by Aquila is Normal, and the sort of forged chimneys, when heated with the furnace, have the same symbols, carvings, etc., lettering, whatever it means, on them. So we know that the built, clearly man-made lightning rods have these carvings, the clearly built man-made furnaces and chimneys to vent have these carvings. Interesting. We then look at Olivia's hammer at the end of the Black Flame Hunt. On the actual metal, it has these carvings. Now, the hammer doesn't have these markings in the base form that we got to see in the beta. So to my mind, this implies that once you've been to the oil well basin, and Gemma has learnt how to forge better weaponry from the tribe that lives there, clearly they are experts in their own way of forging, that method that they have kept, likely through many generations, is what folds this pattern into the metal, and then it shows up once you reach a certain rarity level of the Hope series. That's kind of my initial take, and I think that makes sense to explain it. So we've kind of covered man-made things that share this pattern started by the logo. But nature isn't one to be outdone. Ray Dow, look at his wings. Yeah, that is the exact same swirly pattern that you can find everywhere I've just mentioned. It's not even really subtle when we already know what we're looking for. Note the kind of colouring, note the thickness of the lines, the yellow to orange, the black in between, the swirliness of it. Well, this and the next two were noticed by Duppy the Based Mudfish. Lovely name. Duna also shares this exact same pattern and coloration on the side of its gorgeous face. The plot thickens. Let's go to the next apex, shall we? New Udra, our tentacle god lord soon-to-be daddy. Yes, anyway, so this lovely specimen we see in the IGN Hunt gameplay of him. When they cut off his tentacle, it gives us a nice little look that he also shares this exact same pattern with the same color scheme. And now we're kind of going, okay, interesting. But this right here is as far as it got. This is as far as the sort of coincidences ended. At least it was until this most recent open beta, where during the inclemency, the lightning storms in the Windward Plains, you know, that very suspicious, curvy rock that very much looks like it's not a natural formation. Yeah, if you get real close, zoom in with it all illuminated by the thunder, you can see that it is absolutely covered in these exact same patterns and symbols shared by everything we've talked about. So now we've got clearly man-made stuff, we've got living monster stuff, and now we've got rock formation stuff. It's like the land itself is stamped, which is just a whole other world of things to think about. And while literally getting the footage to show you guys this, I noticed that the same pattern is part of the white leg paint and actually imprinted onto the doshaguma armor's leg, which, again, just adds even more. Clearly, as this was crafted and it's from doshaguma, probably helped by the locals, it's maybe something tied to them, but like this whole thing still, there's no real rhyme or reason. There's no real, like, end thing I can be like, so bring all of this together, and this is what I think it means. It just kind of fizzled out here. It's all interesting and definitely thought-provoking, but I don't think there's any kind of proper thing to latch onto as a solid why is this happening. At least until now, until the most recent trailer and reveals. And I'll tell you why, but before I tell you why, I will add my own to this little collection that all of the people I've mentioned have been so wonderful finding. The Curio Shell Crab. I ran around for way too long in the first beta finding rare endemic life. Other people, of course, found this as well, and up on the highest point of the Windward Plains, you can grab this guy. Its ancient appearance has been retained. So that's very deliberate wording, right? Ancient appearance has been retained, which means this crab looks like it did in ancient times today. Its ancient appearance has been retained. And the crab, if you get a proper look at it, is this golden, beautiful specimen that has essentially the Wilds logo embedded into it. Okay, it's got that swirly pattern we've been tracking, and another natural creature with it, like our apexes, and this is how it looked in ancient times. So that's definitely worth sort of pinning in this mental board we are drawing strings between. So now we can get back to what I alluded to at the start, this update on the Wilds website. The Ice Shard Cliff section has a selection of screenshots showing it off. This one here in particular is very, very eye-catching. A few patrons were very kind to draw my attention to it, but believe me, I very much had my eye on it, because this is supremely curious. First and foremost, let's head down into the bottom left here. This is very clearly not a natural thing, right? This is metallic, it's rigid, it is a construction, it is clearly old, it is clearly damaged, but it is clearly not just some rocks. And if we brighten it up like this, you can see that even more. But the thing that most draws your eye, there's obviously the sort of metal grating on the left as well, which I find very interesting. It definitely looks like sort of containery. But what I think is most interesting is this formation here, what looks like metal spaghetti all twisted around each other. Why? Because that looks identical to wiring, to how wires are constructed, little thin pieces of copper woven around each other. And that can't be a coincidence when we then go have a look at the top. And the top is very, very telling, because around the entire rim of what looks to be this pit, which is again very interesting, this giant pit that you could easily contain something within, is a huge series of what again I can only describe as wires, as wiring, as some sort of construction of clearly metallic-y inference, and it's long been disintegrated, destroyed, broken free from, but it definitively looks like coils of wire going around the rim of this, what looks to be a pit. And there's more of it around the place, as we saw with the bottom left. So the big question is, what goes in here? What was in here? What existed? This is where we get back to sort of Arkveld and him maybe not being air quotes real. We know that Arkveld attacked the Keepers, and the Keepers are in the Iceshard Cliffs. He is supposed to have been kept, right? Chained up with chains. That's his whole shtick. He's broken free, perhaps. We don't know 100%. That's kind of what's implied. But would he have broken free from this? Maybe this kind of wiring structure isn't for obviously conducting electricity. That might be a little bit too far for Monster Hunter, but it's supposed to have interwoven and interlocked to form a full roof on this pit, and he's like flown up or smashed up through it, and he was initially chained to the floor. Whatever is going on, there is very much factually non-natural, constructed, ancient stuff based on its current state of decay that is beyond the tribes that we have seen in the Forbidden Lands. So that takes it back to that ancient civilization. Why is there all of this ancient construction, the forges, the lightning rods, this wiry pit? Why is it all bearing this same strange array of symbols, carvings, etc. that the logo shares, but that also natural living monsters share? If we have this huge series of ancient man-made stuff, and then monsters that have this same imagery on it, is it a huge leap to think that the monsters might have an element of man-madeness if there is this sharing of a distinct signature marking pattern across them all, despite them being hugely different species, despite them living in hugely different environments, despite them not seemingly being biologically related in any way, but a giant flaming octopus monster, a lovely whaley floppy water leviathan, and a lightning flying wyvern all share the same pattern shared by ancient man-made construction. That then leads back to here, where it all started with something to do, or directly to do, with Arkveld in this kind of metallic wiry pit. To me, it feels like there has to be something here, and it kind of then leads to this Arkveld, where we get confirmation that what he does with his chains is drain the power from monsters. That's what's being said. He wraps Raydao, it glows purple, and he drains. But notably, we have only seen Arkveld do this to 2 monsters in everything revealed so far. Duna and Raydao. 2 apexes that share this distinct pattern that you could definitely make a case for not being natural, or at least not as natural as a regular monster, and Arkveld is absorbing their power. So what if Arkveld isn't a natural monster? What if he is a descendant or a last remnant of a more biologically engineered thing that maybe has something to do with the wire pit, and because of that it has the capacity to draw energy from other monsters that have got some tampering in, which may be evidenced by their patterning? That is setting my mind ablaze, and I think it's the fucking coolest theory I've ever talked about, or at least is certainly up there. That might explain why Arkveld is hunting them down, because it's like Cell in Dragon Ball Z. If he absorbs enough humans, he gets to evolve to his next form, and for Arkveld, that's the apexes. They're what's compatible. Maybe once he gets them all, that's what this dragon power-up is. That's what lets him finally reach the form he was quite literally maybe programmed to reach. And the chains aren't there because they were chaining him, they're attached to him to let him do this function. And to add to all of this, and to at least make me feel a little bit not as crazy for this line of thinking, the official Monster Hunter account keeps constantly tweeting stuff like this. There's more to Arkveld's power than meets the eye. What mystery lies at the heart of Arkveld's attack? And the more to his power than meets the eye one especially is focused on the chains, the absorbing, and the red dragon state post-Raydao. You know? And I realize at this point I probably am kind of going off the deep end, but you gotta admit there's a certain flow to all this that I find incredibly compelling. And I don't want to go full ancient civilization, equal dragon weapon, woo! But obviously a while ago I did that video on a very old interview where the devs said, yeah, they're fully aware of all the dragon war, the ancient civilization, the old art books that had the sort of prehistoric extinct monsters, which Arkveld, they said, was extinct, right? Which could just mean ancient civilization, and that when the time is right, they do draw inspiration from that, and that might be what we're seeing play out. And of course, with us now able to properly look at him thanks to the second open beta, you have people like Plasma Lizard here, great name, noticing stuff like this, which has come up before, and I will not put any of my own speculation on this particular, but I mean, you know, I'm just, Bottom line, though, there is, at least in my mind, a certainly going to be something more to Arkveld. Obviously, is the flagship, right? There's always something more, but very much more to Arkveld, to all of these constructions around the maps, and to the apexes themselves. There has to be some connection, and the clues are there that that connection is in the realm of the word ancient and what came before. I think the tribes of the Forbidden Lands moved in. I don't think they date back all the way to whatever built the things we're looking at. I think they took it over. The Forge people learned how to use what was there already, for example. And that's really, really interesting to me. So let me know what you guys think of that little web there. But oh my, if there is even a slight bit of something in there, we are in for a treat. I mean, we're already in for a treat. Wilds looks wonderful, but I don't think I've ever seen such a clear trail of breadcrumbs to something deeper, and unless it all is just a massive coincidence, which feels a weird thing to try and say with how much, attention to detail they put into these games, I, for one, cannot wait to actually see what's up in the real thing. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you disagree, agree, or your own ideas. It's always wonderful to have these theory times. And for now, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage. Goodbye.